All right, welcome to our last video on function over form. And now we're just kind of wrapping up here the implications. And what's pretty obvious is to me, is we're moving to what we can call a sustainable thingosphere, where everything we see around us is part of an integrated system based on the Biosphere rules and networked together using information technologies and the like, right? So we're already seeing servicization in manufacturing. And once that occurs, once production of products and then the products and delivering the services servicized, then we've gone completely to made the transition. And manufacturing and service actually began in the early 2000s when you had these contract manufacturers becoming established in Asia and specifically in China. And when I lived in Arizona, a number of people I had met had built businesses because they had an idea for a product and they contacted a manufacturer in China, and then that Chinese team designed the product, built the prototype, and then set up the manufacturing for it. So really, in some ways, China itself is manufacturing as a service. But now technology is moving us even faster in that way. And 3D printing is really going to be exceptional. What 3D printing has already is all of the elements necessary to pursue the Biosphere rules. It produces an infinite number of products, right? It's building these products from the bottom up, just like nature does. Nature puts together cells and then organisms, putting atoms together and the molecules together, and builds an organism for the bottom up. In same ways, 3D printing or additive manufacturing does the same thing. It builds up a product or an object with successive layers, building upwards. All right. It uses a single material. It's by design materials parsimony, right? There's a parsimonious materials palette. You can produce a nearly infinite number of different object designs from a single material, right? It can run on solar power. These are electric devices, and it's already been demonstrated that you can connect a solar grid and run your laser printer. It's like a laser printer. Run your 3D printer that way. And there are also technologies already existing where you can take old prints, pass them through what's known as a recycle bot, grind them up, and then use them for a new print. So this, as this technology improves, it will be very disruptive, but it also is fundamentally designed to facilitate the extension of the Biosphere rules. And it moves us then away from manufacturing and creating products as a business to a functional service that's encoded electronically and digitally. We're already seeing, everything you can possibly imagine now has already been produced by 3D printers. In the United Arab Emirates, in the Middle East, they're actually producing buildings and houses, and there's a commitment to produce all of their buildings at some point using 3D printing technologies, right? So, you combine the manufacturing as a service, 3D printing technology, then with information technologies, the Internet of Things, that will network all of this together. And the Internet of Things then will facilitate the functional model of, the Tesla model I showed you, where products can, like transportation services can be delivered on demand from a single installed base of vehicles that are being optimized and shuffled around. We can also know where materials are. We can know about the conditions of products and their ability to deliver function with these sensors. All of this becomes networked, and you begin to actually then have fundamental transformation of society. And there are huge questions that go along with that. It's only going to accelerate the disappearance of the type of manufacturing jobs we think of as the good old paying jobs where you built a car or something like that. There are going to be winners and losers. There are going to be good things and bad things. We're going to have to adapt to it. But in terms of the environmental implications, the sustainability implications, all of this is going to allow us to implement the Biosphere rules and move us towards biospheric emulating biosphere models much more quickly. And this transformation can probably come pretty quick. If you look at sort of the diffusion of communications technologies, this yellow line here is wireline or telephone lines. And you can see somewhere around the mid-90s, the number of telephones began to fall off. But these are mobile phones. And, we really went from, a point in the early 90s to having no mobile phones to almost everybody had a mobile phone in 2005. So within, less than 2 decades, we transformed the way we communicate. Now, that didn't mean the old wireline phones went away, but we, in my family, have not had a wireline phone for at least 7 or 8 years. So maybe even longer than that. So, and I remember the time when people first started having cell phones. You'd be at a bar, and all of a sudden someone's cell phone would ring, and everyone would freak out like, oh God, and everyone's checking to see if it was their mobile phone, because we weren't accustomed to it. Now we're absolutely accustomed to it. And then that mobile phone has become a platform for all kinds of other products and services that are being delivered to us. And that happened in our lifetimes. And if you look also, the transformation of transportation in this country, from primarily driven by horses and carriage, the transformation to having more automobiles in our cities than horses, that transformation came pretty quick, less than 2 decades as well. So in your lifetime, you went from looking at the streets of San Francisco being populated by horses and buggies to having, Model Ts driving down the street within a matter of a decade or so. We are at the point where that type of transformation in terms of electrification of vehicles and all of the things I talked about in the previous video, we're at the point where that actually could happen in our lifetimes. And I'm suspecting that it will happen in our lifetime. These transformations can actually, once they get started, they're hard to get started, but once they get started, they can occur relatively quickly. So the biosphere rules as the basis of manufacturing, I think we're on the precipice of seeing that occur, and you'll have to deal with that. What does that mean for your company? What does that mean for your industry? How can you position yourself? How can you take advantage of that? Those are very important strategic questions to be had right now. But we do know what the end model looks like. A lot of people say, oh, sustainability is this journey, and it's like this endless journey. I argue no. We know exactly what sustainability is. Sustainability is a clear destination. We know exactly what our sustainability economy is going to look like. It's going to look like nature, right? You can see, if you look outside in nature, it's easy to understand the sustainability model, right? There is a parsimonious materials palette, right? A handful of elemental materials make up everything you see. The power source is solar. It's in that sense, it's stored, chemically stored electromagnetic energy, right? That's built into the system. The materials are value cycled. They are stored temporarily in a product. The materials are stored in the tree, and when it comes time to build a new tree, after that one's fallen down, they get recycled, right? Same thing. If you were to look out into our cities in the future, imagine a time where the world, every material thing we have in our world is made out of maybe, 7, 10 different types of materials, right? Imagine what kind of world that would be. It'd be like the forest. And it's all manufactured using and operated using solar power. And it can all be value cycled. So anything you see once it comes to the end of your useful life can be broken down on the spot and manufactured into another tree or into a bird, so can be used to be broken down on the spot to make a coffee cup or a new countertop or the casing for your computer or whatever. All of that's going to be readily available for us in the environment. It's going to be value cycled. And then we're not going to be focused on owning products. We're going to be focused on getting the functional services we need, get the services we need. It's going to be exactly as experts are saying now, the access economy. Access is more important than ownership. We know that's the destination, and it can come pretty quickly. And you have to ask yourself, is your company prepared? Are you having strategic discussions about this? Are you even aware that this is a possibility? If not, as you watch the early industries that will be disrupted by the types of things I talked about in the last video, that is a warning call. And as an executive, if you become aware of it, you can use those disruptions in other industries to call attention, get people attentive, and begin to ask, what are the implications for us in our company? How can we help? How can we participate in this transformation? How can we accelerate this transformation? How can we benefit from this transformation? All right, we'll follow up with a closing video, but that wraps up Biosphere Rule number 5 and wraps up our coverage of all 5 Biosphere Rules. All right, so we'll see you in the closing video.